Hey everybody, welcome to What the Tech. I'm Andrew Zarian. Of course, I'm joined by...
Of course you are.
Of course, I'm joined by the Icicle Man, Paul Thurrott.
Yeah.
Oh man, you are... I mean, you're buried, right? Is it still, like... Are the roads
seriously,
okay?
I mean this. Aside from the stuff with we've had some weirdness with the house, and that's been kind of a first for this year, but... You know, whatever. We get a lot of snow. We get a lot of snow every year. We always have like 3 feet of snow on the ground in the winter. It's no big deal. But... It's just a pain. It's mostly just an inconvenience, you know. But we get the driveway done. We shovel our walks ourselves, the stairs and all that stuff, and to and from the cars, and you know, whatever. We get it done.
How quick have they been to clean up the streets?
So this is actually kind of a weirdness of this town. So I don't think this was last year. I think it was 2 years ago. The town contracts out a lot of the snow removal stuff, right? So a couple of years ago, whatever company this was obviously didn't know Dedham at all. And these guys were careening around the streets in their trucks, drunkenly, I assume. They knocked over every single sign in my neighborhood.
Oh, my God.
Every single sign. And this was not unique to my neighborhood. It was like all over Dedham, I guess. And so I don't know if they were fired or if they've just, you know, have agreed to change their ways. But this year, what they're doing is they're not coming anywhere near the curbs. And so if you imagine that a street is a certain width, instead of going right up to the curb, where you could imagine like a big blade on a giant plow might, you know, cut up the curb, right, which would require the town to fix it later, which could be expensive. They're not even coming like 8 feet to the curb. So
they're just
in the
plowing
past,
one little thing in the middle?
Yeah, so you have like enough room for a car plus a quarter of a car in the middle of the road, which means that no one can park on the street or park in front of your house if they're visiting or dropping something off or whatever. It's impossible to pass anyone on these roads, especially in my neighborhood. It's like a little tunnel in the middle of the street. And so like a typical winter, there's like a fence, we have a small, like one of those plastic, you know, PVC type fences around the property, right? So it runs up to the sidewalk. And so Dedham has one of those cute little plows that plows the sidewalk. We haven't seen that thing once this winter, but normally you would get like the sidewalk would be plowed.
Wait a minute, you have people that plow your sidewalk?
Yeah, because, you know, the kids have to stand out there for school and everything.
That's not a thing here. You have to do your own.
Oh, well, I mean, that would be... I wouldn't be able to... we're on a corner. There's no way I could...
Oh, my God, that's amazing.
Well, anyway. They haven't done that once this winter. It doesn't matter. So we might as well not have it. But, you know, and then there would be like a foot or two of snow, and then there would be the street. And that would be how it would be plowed. And that would be, you know, this is no big deal. There's snow everywhere, and it looks nice, but... It's, you know, it's serviceable. This year, there's no plowing of the sidewalks. That hasn't occurred anywhere that I know of. And like I said, they're only plowing like 60 or 50% of the street. So, you know, like from my fence to the new border of the street, it's like 12 feet now. Like there's like this huge swath of just,
oh my God.
Well, it's not flat snow. They're piling snow. And so the snow on the corner where my fence is under a mountain of snow that's got to be 10 or 12 feet tall. For all I know, it's destroyed. I have no idea.
Oh, my God.
And the snow on the flat part of my yard is level with the top of the fence. So it's got to be about 4 feet worth of snow there, I guess. Something like that. 4 feet. Yeah, 4 feet.
How much snow have you gotten since, I guess, it started like a month ago?
I'm not sure. I mean, I just saw a statistic in... the Boston Globe, that Boston has received 64.5 inches of snow in the last 2 weeks. But we've actually gotten more snow than Boston and Dedham. I mean, we're right next to Boston, but for whatever reason, like that last storm, we got a lot more snow than Boston did. So I would imagine that Dedham's is closer to like 70 inches or something like that. And that's just 2 weeks. Like, I don't know the rest of the month. I don't know. You know, we've gotten about 6 feet of snow.
I mean, we missed all of it. I mean, it just came and it just totally went, and that was it. Like we got that one.
It looks like Newfoundland here. I'm waiting to see like an iceberg go floating down the street. You know? No, this is just. I don't know. I guess honestly, if it weren't for the stuff with the ice in the house, we wouldn't be having this conversation. You would have asked about the snow, and I would have said, you know what, this is no different than whatever. It's a little more, yes. it is kind of interesting how much it snowed. We're going to get more snow Thursday. We're going to get more snow on Sunday. It's been going like
but
that.
Nothing like you got.
I don't think so. It looks like it's going to be under 6 inches in both cases. So.
Oh man, I feel so bad.
I don't know.
For you.
I mean, like I said, but as far as like shoveling, I mean, we go out, we do it like we normally do. It's no big deal, and I haven't thought much of it. It's it's pretty. We take pictures and stuff and whatever. But like yesterday when we discovered like Stephanie, I think we'd seen this stuff in the bedroom, but Stephanie saw a stain on the ceiling in the kitchen, and she was like, "What's that? What's going on there?" Because the snow, you have to think about it, the snow on the roof is on the roof, so it's dragging dirt with it or whatever. So when the water gets in, it's like kind of brown.
Ugh.
So it's like this, it's like this ugly brown stain on the ceiling, and it's like, great, just like fantastic.
I'm really lucky. This house is over 110 years old, and I'm just waiting for one storm like that to come in. Like it's just gonna happen where like my entire house is gonna like end up in the next town over.
Right.
Like Sandy did nothing, a tornado hit nothing, but like one snowstorm, that's going to be it for us.
Right.
I mean, that's just how it is. These homes, how old is your house? It's not that old.
It's not that old. It's from the 60s.
Yeah.
The windows needed to be replaced anyway. I mean, the windows here are not in good shape. And last summer we ended up we replaced the furnace and we got like an AC, central air, and because it made more sense as far as efficiency and everything. But we really needed to do the windows anyway, and maybe would have done them this year anyway. Now we literally have no choice. Like we're going to have to replace the windows.
Yeah.
They're just wrecked.
And there's no tech that could help you there, huh?
Well, I mean, like a flamethrower.
Yeah.
We had my daughter up there with like the hair dryer. It's just not much you can do. It's just you get a mallet and some kind of an edge, like giant, screwdriver or whatever.
And just pick at it. Yeah.
Yeah. You go to town on it.
Awful, Paul. That's awful.
Yeah. It's weird.
It has to be bizarre to like go out there and like every day it's like we had like an ice storm yesterday, and that was bad enough. I can't imagine being under 4 feet of snow at this point.
It was a lot of work to get that stuff out of the windows last night. But when it was done, I said to my wife, I was like, you know what? I kind of got the hang of this. Like, I feel like I got, by the 3rd and 4th window, I was like, I know how to do this, and now I have to do it again. It's like, it's too bad.
The kids have not at school, right?
I know.
For how long?
That's the other thing. They missed 2 days last week and 2 days this week.
So they were talking about how they're going to cancel April break, I guess.
Oh, that wouldn't surprise me. I mean, I guess there's a deal where, my kids are always very excited when they miss school, but I keep telling them, you're not going to be so excited when it's the last week of June and you're still in school.
Yeah.
And I think they reach a point where if they're going to be in school on July 1st, they have to start kicking days out earlier in the schedule because they can't go into July.
Oh, man.
And no, God, who wants to be in school that long,
Especially in the city, like in the Northeast, we got brutal summers, so
yeah,
it's not easy. Oh man, I'm sorry to hear that, Paul. It's been a rough week for you.
Yep.
And but you know what? Let's talk about some technology stuff. Let's talk about tech.
All right.
I wanted to ask you about, and I got a lot of messages because you posted an article on Thurrott.com, the new place for all things Paul Thurrott, guys. You can subscribe to the newsletter there. They're giving away mugs, Paul Thurrott mugs. Do you have one with you right now?
I do actually. I don't know what you can see in my office. I guess it's. I'm actually cleaning, so I've moved those. They're actually way over there. I don't have them right.
Well, he's giving
away.
Now. He's giving away Paul Thurrott mugs.
My Twitter avatar is a picture of a bug.
Yeah, you could see it there. But sign up for the newsletter. I subscribe to it, and I get excited because I think Paul's emailing me, and he's not. And get a little sad every day. But every day there's a daily newsletter that goes out. Great stuff, and the website's really coming along, and a lot of people are excited for it. You know what I really like about the new site, and this is not a plug. This is not an ad, guys. I'm talking to Paul because he's my friend.
Sure.
I love the comments section now.
Yeah, I do too. Although with one caveat, on my old site, I had to moderate comments by hand because we got so much spam, content spam. And, of course we have kind of an archaic CMS over there, and it was just, it was difficult. And there's an issue there because when you're doing it manually, like I was, you can ensure a certain level of comment, which is nice. And so the comments we did have there were very good. But, it also meant for a lot of people that they would comment and it wouldn't happen. They wouldn't be published to the site right away. And I know that's not great. So we're using Discuss at the news site. And of course, what you see is like an exponentially higher level of commenting. And, I'm not quite sure how it works from a content spam perspective. I mean, obviously they handle this, electronically, and it's pretty good. I've only seen one absolutely insane, obvious, terrible content spam type thing. So that's been nice. And so there's a lot more comments happening, which is great. And it seems like mostly it's good conversation. I mean, obviously there's always people complaining Windows Phone. There's nothing you can do about that stuff. There's a couple of real asshats in there as well, of course. But that said, overall it's great. I mean, the only downside about it to me personally is I like to keep up on it. And unfortunately, when you've got articles that have like 50 to 200 or whatever number of comments, and now you're 7 days in, and I've published 5 or 6 articles per day, it's very hard to keep up on what's going on. So I do lose track of the thread after some number of days, depending on the article.
But you know what's interesting? Like, I like it because there's a lot of different perspectives coming into play now. Yeah. And it makes me like, I'll read an article and I understand it, and then someone will bring up a point. I'm like, I didn't look at it that way.
Yeah.
You had an article posted about the Lumia line, Microsoft's first Mobile World Congress as a phone maker, and because they're going to be presenting the Lumia. So I want to talk about that. And a lot of people were talking about, just what the future of this Lumia line is, because we have not gotten any hint of a flagship phone yet.
Right.
And will this be are they going to unveil their first flagship under the Lumia brand, under a Microsoft device? This is what a lot of people have been asking me, because I get emails all the time. They're like, okay, what Windows phone should I buy? And I can't give them an answer because they're all pretty old at this point. The higher end ones, the flagship ones.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So,
yeah, no, I know. Yeah.
Do we know anything when it comes to their future flagship device?
Yeah, what we know is that they're almost certainly not going to release a new flagship until Windows 10 ships. And so the question now becomes when they would announce such a thing. Could it happen at Mobile World Congress in March? I don't think so. And then when would that thing happen? Like when will Windows 10, release, especially for phones? And August, September, October. It's going to be later half of the year.
But so you don't think we're going to see any kind of hint at a flagship device next month?
I would be surprised if they announced a flagship device in March. Yeah, it doesn't mean it won't happen, but I would be surprised.
Because I'm looking here on their lineup, and it's. I mean,
I can tell you exactly what the schedule is if you want to know.
Yeah. Do you have it?
Well, no, as far as like what they've released and when. Yeah. I mean, the last flagship device they released was the Lumia 930, which is the phone I'm now using, which is the article I just wrote about. This is not a phone that was released in the United States. And so I bought my phone at Expansys. Actually, right now you get better prices at Amazon, but you can buy an unlocked kind of no warranty version of this phone online, and you can use it on AT&T or T-Mobile, but you don't get LTE speeds. It came out mid-2014 internationally. It's a great phone. It's still an exceptional high-end device. It's not a step down by any measure at all. It's a wonderful high-end
But
device.
It wasn't released in the States.
Not released in the States.
So what was the equivalent to this?
The equivalent to this was the Verizon
Icon.
Lumia Icon.
Okay.
Right? There are a couple of minor changes, but it's basically the same device. That came out in March 2014, I want to say. Of course, that's also the center of another big and related controversy because Microsoft has released Windows Phone 8.1 in April of last year. They released Windows Phone 8.1.1 in August of last year. And then, of course, the Lumia devices all get a set of firmware updates that's attached to each one of those, Cyan and Denim, respectively. And the Verizon device has not gotten those updates even today.
Because of Verizon.
Because of Verizon. So Microsoft and Verizon both say that this is happening. It should happen this month. I guess we'll see. It's just, and by the way, could you imagine the incredible wheel of emotions that will occur when Verizon finally ships this update, people excitedly download it, and then find out that what they got was last year's April update, not the more recent one, right? Imagine if that happens. I'm not saying it's going to happen.
I mean, that's a possibility.
It is absolutely a possibility. Yeah. There's such terrible people over there. So we'll see what happens. But that's that.
Is the delay of new hardware and new hardware announcements, is it directly linked to the fact that Windows Phone 10 is going to, or Windows 10 is coming out? It's not Windows Phone 10, it's Windows 10. And and they're waiting. I guess they're waiting to see when this is going to be released. Because if you really think about it, if they had stuck to the original cycle of possibly releasing in April, it would make sense for a new phone to be released, to be announced.
Well, they're overdue.
March.
I mean, they've never gone this long without a flagship phone. They've never gone this long. Windows 10 is part of it. It's not all of it. And in some ways, by the way, the whys of it don't matter. It should be noted that Nokia and then Microsoft have released other phones, right? The 730, 735, 830, more recently the 532 and 435, I think, are the models, have all been announced and are releasing around the world. Those are mid-level, low-end phones, whatever. 535, another one, which was an excellent kind of low/middle of the market type phone. Microsoft, Nokia before it, has never experienced strong sales of a flagship phone, with the one exception of the 920, which was a device that somehow managed to be released all around the world. And that one saw some pretty good success. Since then, the 925, 928, the 1020, the 1520, the Icon, the 930 have all not sold well at all. And so, Microsoft, so part of the reason is Microsoft has been Microsoft/Nokia, going after the low end of the market where they think they can make a difference, where they think they can ship some volume. And I think that strategy makes plenty of sense. There's nothing wrong with that. That's fine. The other thing that, people don't really talk about a lot is that Windows Phone 8.1 and then 8.1.1 were both supposed to have some features in them that never made the cut. And those features were going to be part of flagship phones that Nokia first and then Microsoft was going to release in time for the holidays last year. And so as those features didn't make it into the subsequent releases of Windows Phone, the phones that were going to take advantage of those features didn't get released either. And so we have that kind of artificial gap in time because we would have had other flagships. It just worked out this way. So the natives are getting restless, which is understandable. But I think the thing that people are looking forward to for Mobile World Congress is that this will be the first one where Microsoft is the maker of those Lumia phones. And what will they say? Will they talk about their strategy? Will they talk about their plans for the year? Will they at least say, look, yes, flagships are coming, international, US, they're going to be everywhere. What will they say? I would be very surprised to see someone hold up a device or devices and say, here it is, this is it, you can get it in 6 months. That's a long time to make people wait.
It's a very long time, yeah.
Well, I mean, last year they released they announced the 930 in April at Build, I guess, whenever that was, early April. And that device shipped internationally June-ish, I want to say, maybe by July, certainly. That's a couple of months. I mean, I just think it's a little early.
So by looking at their lineup, right, of phones, I'm on their website, and obviously some of them are outdated, some of them are no longer, phones that you would want to buy. But you got the 1520, then you got the 1020, and then you have the 930. So which one is the flagship device?
Well, it depends on the market. So the 1020, a year and a half ago was the clear flagship. Today, unfortunately, because of its processor, it is out of date. It's not.
I always felt that it was an experiment, for Microsoft and for Nokia. That device was more like an experiment to see, is this something that would sell? Are people going to sacrifice, I guess, the thinness of it, or the, I guess the fluidness of the feel of the phone for a better camera? Are people going to be attracted? I mean, that's how I saw it. I could be wrong. I mean, obviously, specs-wise at the time, it was a flagship. But
obviously, that kind of an optical, lens and that kind of optics, those, that kind of thing is going to appeal to a certain part of the market only, right? So subsequent flagships, the 1520 was the first one, the Icon, and then the 930, all have a 20 megapixel version of that camera, so it's smaller. It doesn't protrude out the back. It's not so obviously like a digital camera type device. They take absolutely fantastic shots. You may recall that 2 summers ago, I took all of my vacation photos with the 1020.
Oh, it's stunning.
But last year, I took them with the 1520. And the 1520 has the same camera that's in the 930. That's in the Icon, same one. 20 megapixels versus 41. Same deal. It takes 2 shots. I used all JPEG, but you have a high resolution original, and then you have a lower resolution version. I think it's 5 megapixels for sharing purposes. So when you share pictures on Facebook or Twitter or whatever, obviously it uses the small one. And it has that ability to go back, and so you can edit the original, and what gets saved is that low end version, and it's all changed. And you share it out, but you can go back to the original and go back. Like you can bring back the pictures that originally was taken. So those capabilities are all still there, and they're just there in more mainstream devices. A phablet, and then a couple of 5-inch devices. And I think, I think those are more generally acceptable to the world of smartphone buyers. That said, none of these phones sold particularly well. So,
I mean, there's a couple options for them, because now are we going to see Lumia-based smaller tablets? I mean, that could be something that could be announced.
I hope not. Not because only because I think they have, like a brand for that, which is Surface, and maybe Surface. Maybe there will be a Surface announcement. Although that's that for the same reasons as with phone or with Lumia, why would they announce a device now when, it makes sense to wait for Windows 10? The Surface Pro 3 is another example of a product where each of the 3 generations of that device, or I should say the 2 newest generations, all arrived pretty quickly, about 9 months after the previous device, not once a year, like at 9 months. And so when you think about when the Surface Pro 3 was released, roughly last July, 9 months is we're getting right there. Like, it seems like it's time. But why would you release Surface Pro 4 now if Windows 10 is coming out, right after?
It doesn't make sense. Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
For whatever it's worth, the Surface Pro devices have always been a generation behind on the Intel processors. This might also be a reason or a time for Microsoft to kind of catch up there and not ship something now with what had come out 6 months ago, but have something new at launch, maybe, for a change. That'd be kind of nice.
There's a lot up in the air right now with them, because they've done a 180 when it comes to almost all of this. Their entire concept of the operating system is totally different now, which rightfully so. They had to modify, they had to change it. They saw something didn't work, and now they're adapting to it. But when it comes to the phones, they seem like for a good year and a half, they really exclusively concentrated on the mid-range, entry-level, lower end of the market, emerging markets, to kind of penetrate it and kind of get the numbers there, where more people are developing and more people are using the service, the devices. But is it time for them to kind of shift that and say, okay, you know what, guys, we need to concentrate on the high end, because people want to buy a high-end phone also.
Yeah, people don't want. So, I mean, obviously we want.
We do,
right. There's the people listening to this, people that read my stuff, and me personally do want it. But I think we also have to be honest that, broadly speaking, this is not what the world wants. Unfortunately, it's too bad. I will say that once Windows 10 ships, this notion of having to wait for that next major OS release maybe goes away, at least for a little while. If you think about, let's say it's a year from now, and maybe you have a Lumia coming out or a Surface something. And, in the past, you might have said, maybe we need to wait till the fall so we can align with the next major release. With Windows 10, it's not going to matter as much, because Windows 10, everyone's going to get updated as you go. We're not going to have these issues. And we don't know exactly, how they're going to handle that on phone. They told me they have a plan for that, because, as everyone knows, they have trouble shipping updates on phones. But
are they going to change the way that they do updates in general for Windows 10? And not major updates, but incremental updates? Is that going to change too on how they're releasing these updates?
I think I can't say for sure, because they're being a little cagey about this. But when they announced their plan to upgrade people for free, remember from Windows 7, Windows 8 or 8.1 and Windows Phone 8.1 as well to Windows 10, part of that deal is you need to let us update your machine, right? This is not going to be like an opt-in thing anymore. You're going to have to take updates. And I don't know if they're going to be able to, or will do that for the broader user base. I mean, if you're a person who says, you know what, I'm not accepting the free update. I'm going to buy this product and I don't want to update it, or, you can just turn it off. Maybe there'll be a switch. I'm sure third parties will come up with utilities that will turn it off. But I don't know. I mean, so we're going to see. I mean, they've announced plans for businesses that don't want to be on that kind of an updating schedule, which is most of them. And they're going to let them update on their own schedule, sort of. I mean, it's going to be slightly more aggressive than in the past, but they'll give them the tools that they're used to. We got to wait and see. They just haven't provided details.
Have they provided any details for version types for the desktop and how that's going to work?
They haven't said yet.
Because if, for example, if I have Windows 7 Ultimate, right? Do I get upgraded to whatever the equivalent of what an Ultimate version would be?
Yeah.
Or am I being upgraded to the standard
So,
Windows 10 Professional?
Right. So at some point they'll announce what that is, right? So this is complicated because Windows 7 had 5 versions, right? It was like Starter, Home Premium, Pro, and Ultimate, right? Roughly speaking. And then N versions, in Europe. But let's just say 5 versions. Windows 8 is a little simpler, but there's like a core version of Windows 8. There's a Pro version. There's an Enterprise version, and actually there's an Enterprise version for 7 as well, but those are for businesses. And now there's this version with Bing, right? 8.1 with Bing, which is really core, but technically a third version. We don't know. So the Windows 10 stuff we've gotten so far, like if I look at this today, I'm sure it says Windows 10 Pro or something like that. Windows 10 Pro, right? So it kind of aligns with Windows 8.1. I would expect that it kind of does. There'll be a mobile version. It literally is Windows 10 Mobile. And you'll go to that from a phone, right? That'll be the version you get on phone.
Yeah.
On a new device, smaller than 8-inch screen, I believe, that's the version you're going to get. But what if you have an HP Stream 7, which is a 7-inch screen today, but it's running Windows 8.1 with Bing? Like, what do you get, right?
That's a very good question, yeah.
They haven't said what you get, but what they have said is that you will get the desktop. And the desktop is not available in Windows 10 Mobile. So if you were buying a Stream a year from now, Stream 7, you would get a version of the OS that had no desktop. But if you have a Stream 7 today and you upgrade to Windows 10, you are going to have the desktop because the device you have today does have the desktop.
Yeah.
And you might have installed desktop apps on it.
And what happens to RT? All those devices with RT?
So RT is not going to get Windows 10, but it is going to get some number of updates that will have some Windows 10 features. Probably because it's a special case, and Windows RT does have a desktop, and ARM versions of Windows 10 will not, and so they have to do something special for Windows RT, which they don't intend to support forever. But they'll provide something.
Someone asked a very interesting question, and probably the answer is going to be no, but Sasha B in our chat room says, I wonder if Win32 and command prompts are going to be available in Windows 10 for phone.
Right. So that's a good question, actually. So there's no way to know now. I mean, any day now, from today through the end of the month, one of these days, Microsoft will release the first technical preview, and some of our questions will be answered, right? Tied to that question is useful desktop or maybe big Windows features that would be nice to have on phone. For example, the Bluetooth profile support that's in Windows Phone today doesn't include keyboard or mouse support, right? You can't attach a Bluetooth keyboard to a phone, meaning that you can't use it as an office productivity thing with a keyboard, which would be kind of, in some cases would be okay, kind of interesting. Technically speaking, there's no reason these things can't work on Windows 10, right? Because it's Windows 10, it's Windows. The question is going to be whether they artificially limit the OS not to include command line.
I think they're gonna have it hidden somewhere, and somebody's going to be able to put out something that you're able to access it.
Well,
it's there.
The issue it's not that simple. Although there was some hacking this way around. Remember, Windows RT was the same kind of situation. And so on Windows RT, you can kind of lock the system down where it can only accept signed drivers. And I guess you could find a driver maker who would, compile an Intel driver for ARM and give it to you, and then you could figure out a way to bypass the driver signing technology and get that thing installed in the phone. And technically, you could get it to work. Will that kind of thing happen? We got to wait and see what Microsoft does before we worry about that. But it's not going to be as straightforward as maybe if these were Intel devices. I think that stuff would be very easy to work around.
Yeah, I'm ready to. It's unfortunately for people who like the fact that I use Android. I'm about to tap out here and just either go with an iPhone, and something I said I would never do because I wanted to be in different ecosystems and I'm already in the iOS experience.
Yeah.
Or just get a good Windows phone, but unfortunately, I'm still sitting in limbo with that because I'm absolutely fed up with Android at this point. I can't use it anymore. When my dialer is crashing on a regular basis on both my phones, and Hangouts are crashing and texts are crashing, I think it's time for me to leave. That's Android saying. That's Android saying, "All right, we don't want you here anymore." It's on both my phones. Both phones.
Yeah.
It's just constant. It always happens. Always. And I know someone's going to come and say, well, I've been using Android for 10 years. And not literally 10 years, but I've been using Android for 5 years and I've never had that crash on me. Well, you are lucky. Because this has been my experience from day one. When you use Android long term and you use it at a normal rate, applications are going to start crashing on you. I've never seen my wife's dialer crash on her iPhone. I don't know if it's like that in Windows Phone, Paul.
Nope. I know. A dialer is, I've never seen that crash.
I'm not even talking about third-party applications. I'm talking about just core OS functionality. We're sorry, your dialer is not responding. Unresponsive.
Android is weird to me. I as it gets updated, and 5.0 is maybe the most dramatic version of this, I keep thinking, this is getting better. Like, you can tell, it looks decent. It's, getting more consistent, but like you've said, I mean, it just doesn't come together in a way that makes sense to me still. And as painful as it is for me to admit, I mean, if Microsoft, canceled Windows Phone tomorrow and all of a sudden I couldn't use the phone I had to make a decision right away, I would probably also go with the iPhone, only because it's more consistent and appealing looking. And the app ecosystem is so amazing. It's even better than it is on Android. That said, I feel like a lot of Windows guys would probably go with Android because Android kind of is Windows.
It's the same mentality. Yeah.
It's that open Wild West approach, where you can do whatever. There are a lot of people who like that kind of ability to go in and screw with everything, and you get that with Android. And I think that would be appealing to a big part of the user base.
You know what was amazing? Jessica took out her iPhone yesterday, and we were just walking, and she just snapped a photo. Just like, boom, took the picture. So I took my phone because I'm a better, shot. I could take a better picture. I took my phone, and it literally took me like 3 minutes to figure it out. So I had to go to an application that lets me set the exposure. I took the photo. The stability wasn't right, so I had to take it again and again and again. I took like 6 shots to finally get it where it was. I looked at my wife's phone and I looked at mine. Hers was 10 times better than my photo. And she just took it out like this. Boom.
Yeah.
Done.
Right. The photo taking thing is a big part of it. I mean, it's one of the big benefits of Windows Phone, and it is something that, Apple gets right with the iPhone. Like the picture taking experience on the iPhone is fantastic.
It just, I was so
on
frustrated.
Android, it's like a roulette wheel. You never know what you're going to get.
Yeah.
Some of the phones are decent. I mean, they're not universally terrible, but
no, you know what? There are good applications. There are good. Whatever's on iOS essentially exists on Android at this point. But the problem is it doesn't work as well.
Right.
Because it's Android, and that's just how it is at this point. And people are going to get really upset. But listen, this is my experience with this. If it was a great experience, I would tell you how much I love Android and how great it is. But unfortunately, I can't say that.
Right.
I was so fed up with my MacBook also, Paul. I was actually going to call you and say, give me a good recommendation. I'm going to buy a laptop right now.
There are some good ones.
Yeah. The playing field is evened out at this point. If you're buying for aesthetics, really, Apple is not, leading it by leaps and bounds. It's a very close chase at this point.
They're sticking to a very consistent look and feel across their devices, which is fine, but it's also a little bland. I mean, one of the things that I thought Apple did really right for a while there was have all of those color choices. I mean, as goofy as some people kind of thought that stuff was, like the spotted iMac and stuff like that. I mean, I think people really like that kind of customization capability. And and I think it's the reason why you see, that and the shatterness of them. But I mean, you see a lot of iPhone cases. You see lots of MacBook cases. I mean, people like to, throw this stuff on there. But I think like something that was done by Apple in kind of a stock sense, would make those things more appealing to people as well.
I wish you could have seen what I was about to do yesterday. And I stopped myself and I said, this is not a normal thought to have. I took out my drill and I took the bottom plate off my Mac because my Mac is now overheating. It's constantly running at 189 to like 205
Was it full
degrees.
Of dog hair?
There's nothing inside of it. I just, as soon as I start like a video, it's at like 200 degrees. So I'm like, how do I fix this? Well, I took out a drill and I was going to drill holes on the bottom of the case. The metal piece on the bottom, I was going to take it off, obviously, and just drill a bunch of vents. And I thought about this. I go, this is insane. Who would even think about doing this? Nobody's thinking about doing this. And I didn't do it. I'd rather complain about the problem than actually try to fix it by drilling holes in my Mac. But it just, it just like I'm like, I could deal with it. Whatever, it gets to 200 degrees. So what? It'll die and I'll buy a new one. Just, crazy thoughts I'm having recently. I'm losing my mind. the snow. Right. Going stir crazy. Let's talk about Office 16. They did something interesting here. It's essentially free for anybody to use the trial, the preview version of it.
Yep.
And a lot of people are downloading it.
Not anymore.
Not anymore, yeah. But they did initially.
It's unclear if that was opened up by mistake now. Granted, they never announced it officially. But, yeah, Microsoft has long had this site called Connect, like Microsoft Connect. And a lot of their beta program stuff goes through there. And yesterday on Connect, Office 16 became publicly available. And anyone could sign in. I guess you had to agree to some kind of an NDA, which, if true, was the most vague and easily ignored NDA.
Yeah, because everybody posted images and screenshots.
Well, yeah. And then, people, Paul, you're supposed to be under NDA. Oh, really? Well, my understanding of an NDA was it was something you agreed to. But okay, I never heard of that, but fine. There's not much there. I mean, it's basically Office 2013 with a couple of extra features. I mean, I used in Word, which I use most frequently. These are not huge revelations. People had published information about this, but they finally have a dark theme to the application windows, which is actually dark, which I find to be very pleasant. And there's like a tell me integration, so you can ask it simple questions, right? And I think the goal here is that a lot of people type those questions, but what they really want people to do is ask those questions like they would with Cortana, and that will be coming, I guess, in the future, where you can say, hey, how do I add a special character here? Or, how do I insert a symbol of some kind? And it will show you how to do it, right? Rather than, the old way of getting help where you actually launch a help window, it downloads content, you type in stuff, it's not quite right, and then finally you just go to Google and figure it out. So they're trying to do that kind of stuff. But, yeah, I guess it was, it might have been a mistake. So
is there, how is a Cortana integration going to work for Office 16?
Well, we don't know. I mean, I haven't seen that, so I'm just guessing. But right now, there's a feature in there. It's Tell Me, which is the voice command, I guess, technology, for lack of a better term, the voice recognition technology that Microsoft acquired. I mean, over a decade ago, a long, long time ago. I mean, there was a Tell Me application you could get for Windows Mobile back in the day, and of course now Windows Phone 8.1, I guess, was the one, or 8.1 or 8.1, I guess, added Cortana, which is their new kind of generation of the stuff. But in Office 16, the build that we saw this past week, which actually dates back to October, it's still like a Tell Me kind of thing. It says Tell Me, it's kind of old fashioned, but I think it's going to be Cortana.
Yeah. I was on Thurrott.com and I saw the technical preview, Windows 10 technical preview post that you made, and the tip was to toggle to the dark theme. And the comment section had me laughing because everybody started posting their XP dark themes.
Yep, the Zune theme.
The Zune theme, yeah. Like I was looking at this, and I was laughing. I was like, oh, that's actually really funny. And we're talking about themes.
That was
again.
a big deal. I mean, the initial promise of Windows XP was that it shipped with, I guess, 3 really strange color schemes. There was the blue and green one that everyone remembers, but there was silver, right? And then there was like a light green one, like a kind of a, not ochre, but like, what do you call that color? It doesn't matter.
Like a lime?
No, it was like a yellow green kind of weird color.
Yeah.
And why those colors, right? I mean, the fact that it shipped with only 3 and they were kind of weird choices should have been the tip off that this wasn't going to work out, because the original plan was they were going to release all kinds of themes. There were going to be theme packs.
Yeah, I remember.
People were going to be able to make their own themes, and this is kind of sound like a weird comparison, but what it reminds me of is what car makers face when they build cars that are made out of different materials. And so if you think about the body of a car is obviously some kind of a metal, but then the panels that you put on the car, like the bumpers, the doors and so forth, those things might be a completely different material than the frame of the car. So when you paint it, paint doesn't apply the same to different materials. And so that's why like a lot of American cars in the 1980s, in particular 70s, it would be like a gold color or a green color or a gray color, but the color would be slightly different on each part of the car because, paint just doesn't apply well to each part. So in Windows XP, obviously not exactly the same problem.
Yeah, it was called Luna. It was an olive green.
Olive.
Yeah, it was an olive green, and then you had the silver.
Silver, and
then you had the Royal Noir theme.
Well, those came later.
The supplemental pack.
What happened was they discovered that these things were actually really hard to make because when you apply these colors, they get applied everywhere all over the US. And so there would be these strange dialogues that, weren't constructed correctly. And the color choices that they made in the theme would make the text unreadable or almost unreadable. And they discovered very quickly that their plans for this were not going to work. And so they really backpedaled on this because up front, there were going to be all kinds of color schemes and things, and it just never really happened. And so there was that Royale Blue one that you were talking about. There was a Zune one.
The embedded Windows embedded theme.
Yeah, I don't know if that was an official one, but there weren't many, and it just and so obviously for post XP they switched to Aero and Glass, and then they could add that kind of color variability where you can just take a slider and really make fine-tune adjustments to the color of the glass and how it bleeds through and everything, and it becomes a nicer thing. But it took them a long, they just screwed it up in XP.
Yeah, I guess I was going based on like how Windows 95 Plus was, where you had all these theme packs and and did 98 have a Plus? I think it did.
Yeah, it did.
It did, and then they didn't do it with XP.
Actually, they did do some with XP, but those came later, and they weren't the same thing. Like there was a digital media plus pack, there was a games plus pack, like a card, like kind of casual games, like card games and things like that. There were different plus packs, but yeah, I mean that kind of classic plus pack from, like Plus 98 was absolutely a thing. Let's see if it says. So there was, the game pack, cards and puzzles. There's something called this Plus for Windows XP. I forgot about that one. Digital Media Edition, Super Pack.
Super Pack. I remember the Super Pack.
So
are they gonna expand on this for Windows 10? Where they're gonna have even more themes and more color packages? Is this gonna be something that they're sticking to two standards?
Yeah, they're going to make it consistent with Windows Phone, right? And so in Windows Phone today, it's a little different than it will be in Windows 10. But you have there's a few notions going on. There's they unfortunately use inconsistent language, but there's basically background colors, and then there are accent colors, and then you can have a background image that shows through in Windows Phone on the tiles, not on the background, which is really strange. In Windows 10, we'll have the same accent color, black, dark, and light. The ability to bleed through on the the taskbar in the start menu or not. You can turn it on and off. Obviously, background images and/or colors and things like that. And you can sync these things across device types. And so conceivably, you could have, if you wanted to, the same imagery and color scheme on all of your devices, or you could have different ones. Your choice. They're always. I think the customization stuff's important. It's a little different from version to version because, the technology changes and everything. And invariably there are people like, oh, I wish it was the way it was. And, I wish they'd bring back Arrow from Windows 7. Or,
Yeah.
Whatever. But I mean, time marches on. I mean, it's just the way it is. So it changes as we move forward.
I turned all that off for the longest time, and then I realized that it was better.
Yeah.
You actually told me it was better to have it turned on because video acceleration wasn't working if you didn't have it turned on.
Yeah, and that was one of those things like when Windows 7 or I guess XP first came out, it was actually better to leave it off because most people had lower end older systems and they couldn't run that efficient. But once you got into a modern Intel type processor, et cetera, it was actually better to have Arrow on because now your GPU was running the screen, not your CPU, right? And so when you turn it off, it was basically software rendering. You were actually making your computer slow.
And I have to tell you, I had no idea that was a thing. Like for years, I would just turn it off. And you're like, no, actually, you're better off because your video card is now working instead of your CPU, so you're going to use less resources.
Yep.
So
it's better battery life,
Yeah, that was actually a phenomenal tip. I learned something, Paul. I wanted to talk about Apple for a couple minutes because there was a bunch of reports coming out. I know, who doesn't want to talk about them? There's a bunch of reports coming out that are saying that iOS 9 is going to focus more for, I guess, performance increases and just fixing the stuff under the hood. 9to5 Mac was claiming that there's going to be huge emphasis on behind the scenes fixes and performance optimization, which rightfully so. I mean, I can't see them doing a major change to the operating system right now. Which I had predicted that the next version, not this one, but the following version, we're going to start finding out that we're going to get a major change to the operating system.
So honestly, when I think about iOS and they did the major change with 7, right? And then 8 was more of a fine tuning kind of thing. Although I guess, this version's been kind of uniquely buggy as well. And so the idea of them kind of stepping back and kind of getting it right, I think is not such a bad idea. But that said, they could make very small visual changes that would have a big impact. For example, we were just talking about these color schemes and all that kind of stuff. I mean, why doesn't iOS offer that? iOS today is a very bright white kind of experience for the most part. I mean, offer like a dark theme and a gray theme and and I think that kind of stuff honestly would get it. Well, it's Apple, so they'd get a standing ovation regardless. But I think a lot of the user base there would just appreciate that kind of thing. They could offer that up as something that would be so obvious to everyone who sees it and uses it, while they were also doing all that stuff on the back end, which I think is absolutely okay to do too. So
I think it's necessary. See. I mean, you don't want to. And I was reading the comments on one of these sites that posted this, and we were like, "Oh, this is it for Apple. They're done. You see, they're not innovative." I'm like, "Listen, you can't change everything every year. How many years did iOS, look the way that it did before they changed it? Quite a few years. Well, 5 years, 6 years.
7, 6, yeah.
Yeah. So this is just how it works. You stick to something, and it looks like that. Windows Phone looks the same at the core.
Yeah.
Android looks the same at the core.
Actually, I would say Windows Phone is the most consistent in some ways. Not that that's an accolade necessarily, but I mean,
well, I guess
it's so obviously recognizable as Windows Phone, right?
Well, they have to be.
If you were to show iOS 8 to someone running iOS, iPhone OS 1 or whatever, aside from the home screen, which is clearly the same. I mean, a lot of the UI stuff, they'd be like, what is this thing? Like, this is so bright and contrasty, and it lacks all of those kind of warm, skeuomorphic UIs that were so common back in that day. It's really changed a lot. And, I'd say for Android too, I mean, very consistent, but once you hit Android 5, that's pretty different too.
I don't have Android 5 yet, so I wouldn't know.
Yeah.
We have not gotten the update yet.
Sorry, I did. Sorry, is that a sore spot?
Yeah.
I'd like to get it on I have a Samsung Galaxy S5 on AT&T.
Oh, it's Verizon just got it.
Verizon just got it, yeah. And, I know there's some hokey ways I could get the build on there and stuff, and I just want to get the real thing. I wonder if that would make this phone more appealing to me, although logically I know probably not.
from what people, like, I know someone that just got it yesterday. They got the S5. And I was like, well, and he likes Android. And I was asking, I'm like, well, did you notice anything different? Like, do you like it better? He's like, it's about the same. That was his exact answer. It was about the same. I'm like, okay. Right. I think for most people, it's not a necessary thing. I think like the things like runtime, that they've migrated to a new runtime and they're using more video. The way that they're processing graphics is a little different. Like, I think Will and the 200 something people in the chat room, we will be the ones that actually say, like, wow, this is actually great. But for most people, they're not going to care. Can I get my Instagram on here? I mean, that's essentially all people care about.
There's a difference between what people explicitly want and understand, and then the stuff that actually they benefit from, whether they know it or not. If Microsoft makes Windows more secure and you don't know why or how it's working, and maybe you don't care, it doesn't mean that it's still not working, for you. And so I think in Android's case, like this new runtime, the new app model that they have, this stuff, it's going to benefit everyone eventually. Unfortunately, because of the way the Android market works, today it only benefits like 2% or something. But over time, people move forward to the new systems, and everyone will benefit. It's just that we don't, we just don't see it a lot today.
Yeah, we actually don't at all. Yeah. All right, Paul, time to wrap it up. We're going to do our bonus show. We're going to talk about the Knicks game that I went to last week, and I'll tell you how it went for me.
Yeah, I did read a bit about it. Yeah,
did not go too well for me. So guys, go to our website, gfknetwork.com. You could follow Paul on Twitter at @TheRod. You can follow me at Andrew Zarian. We are going to do a call-in show in a week or so. I got to look at when the last one was, so that's coming up. If you want to fund us, you want to support us, you could do so by going to our Patreon page, patreon.com/whatthetech. Also, whenever you buy something on Amazon, if you want to help me out in the GFQ Network ad, you could use our Amazon link. It's gfq.co/Amazon. Whenever you make a purchase, we get a small little credit. It helps us out, whenever we're doing upgrades here. All right, guys, that's it for this week. We'll see you all next week on What the Tech. Goodbye.